Shalom everyone. Today we're studying Parashat Ekev. You can find it in the book of Deuteronomy, Dvarim, chapter 7, verse 12. והיה עקב תשמעון את המשפטים האלה ושמרתם ועשיתם אותם. Okay, we are reading the book of Deuteronomy, which is the last words of Moses before he leaves to the next world. So that's his legacy, and that's the whole book of Deuteronomy. And we are now in Parashat Ekev. It's already the third parasha of the book of Dvarim. Now, what is the concept of this parasha? Or basically, what is that we can gain? What do we want to gain from this week's consciousness study, training, whatever you call it? Basically, every week is giving us another opportunity to raise ourselves to become the best we can be, which is the goal, the destiny of every one of us. Now, there's one thing that goes across Parashat Ekev, which is very important for us to remember, and this is our calling and focusing about our calling. What is the calling of a human being? And that goes to the basics of studying anything that is called spiritual or Kabbalah. The first question is, what is that we want? Okay? Why is this important? Not just important, this is the most important aspect of our lives. Because, when we study today and the science of achievement is more developed today than ever in history before, because we belong to a society that is goal-oriented, which means people live by achieving goals since they are little kids, and that's a schooling system, and later on it prepares you to life, and life is about goal settings. Okay, what kind of a career do you want? What kind of a life do you want to have? And people invest a lot of time in preparing themselves to achieve the goal. However, when you start studying Kabbalah, you have one thing that you have to remember. When we make those goals, and we know if I do not know how to set the goal, there is a problem, because how can you achieve your goal if you have no idea what it is? And everybody who studies about sales and about business and about anything in life, if you really want to be successful, we are being taught you need to set goals and you need to focus on your goals in order to be an achiever. And we're here to achieve. That's how we're being raised. The problem is like this, and that's the major problem. How do we define the goals? Because most people make a very big and crucial mistake by not being able to differentiate between real goals and means. There are means that we, by mistake, being trained since we are young to set the means as goals. And therefore, we have a problem. You see people that it looks like, and that's a majority of our species, especially in countries that are more advanced, and you can see people who did achieve what the goals they set for themselves. However, they do not feel like they have success. And why is it? And the answer is very simple. When we learn real, true spirituality and we set the goals, the question is, what is a goal? And the answer is that a goal, if you ask people all over the world, from different backgrounds, different religions, races, genders, whatever you name it, when you really ask them to think deep inside, not that deep, what is that you really want, people will answer that they really want to be happy. They want to be fulfilled, which means salary, uh, achievements, these are means, whatever we call achievements in our society, in our modern day culture, achieving big income, achieving beautiful homes, achieving financial security, physical security, nutritional security. This is not a goal, these are means. How do we know? We see people that live in a secure environment, they worked hard, they made enough money to secure their physical lives, and they're still not fulfilled. Because if you define, if you don't know what's your goal, how can you achieve it? And the real goal people talk about is being happy, feeling loved, feeling love, feeling fulfilled, feeling excited about life. Most of the time, let's say not all the time. How do we get these goals? And that's one question. And the other question is, what's the difference between these goals and the means that our society defines as the goals? Which means if you're rich, famous, powerful, and secure, you must be already happy. And that's not the case, as I think most of us realize that sooner or later, people that have what it takes as we think to be happiness does not come automatically the moment you have financial success and all the other kinds of success that we in our culture, civilization, define as success. The answer is within the basic learning of Kabbalah. When we define Kabbalah, one of the major terms we learn about in Kabbalah is called the tree of life. The tree of life is why using a tree? And the answer is that when we're standing in front of a big tree, let's say it's in a big pasture, there's a lot of grass, and here there is this magnificent, beautiful, big, lovely tree standing in front of us. And the question is, how much of the tree can we see? And for a lot of people, the immediate answer would be all of it. But if you think, second thought, we realize it's only part of it, because a very important part of the tree, the roots, cannot be seen because it is under the ground. However, if we cut the tree, we know that the roots can grow another tree in many cases. Okay? If we cut the roots, the tree cannot go on living because the tree will A, fall, B, wilt. The tree cannot sustain without the roots. Why is that important? Why is that called the tree of life? Because the concept of understanding that the moment we look at a human being, we see only the branches. When we see that a person has a body, limbs, head, torso, stuff like this, and you ask, how much of the person do you really see? And the immediate answer is again, all of him. Okay? No, you cannot see the soul. The same way the roots are crucial for the survival of the tree and the ability of the tree to continue living, standing, being the tree it is. Same thing, a human body is only the branches. What really gives it the life is the soul. And the soul is in the root level, which means the moment the soul leaves the body wilts and dies very quickly, which means although you cannot see the roots, they are crucial for the life of the tree. Although you cannot see the soul is crucial for the life of the body. What's the point? We live in a society that denies the existence of the soul. In most school systems in the world of today, there's no study about the soul because maybe you study that science proves or did not prove there is a soul. Science doesn't care to prove there is a soul because the science that we know, that we learn in the school system denies the existence of the spiritual dimension, denies the existence of the soul, which means the science that we learn in school is the science that is basically representing the materialistic civilization that we are part of. And therefore, speaking about the soul is, for a lot of people, more and more people every year, is more and more not scientific, prejudice, kind of like old-fashioned religion. There's no soul. Everybody knows there's no soul. And we have more and more people, more and more civilizations on our earth that deny the existence of the soul and therefore the needs of the soul. The problem is like this: the moment you suffocate the soul, you suffocate the tree. And when we ask ourselves, what are the main problems of today's society, is the denial of the existence of the soul and its needs. Because, as I said, we live, and we all know that, in a very materialistic society, and therefore, this society sanctifies physical success only. Physical success means physical gains. A success of a company is not defined by the happiness of the employees and the customers of the company, but how much money, and that can be measured, how much money the company is making. That's the definition of the success. And not just how many percentage of growth this company can show yearly, monthly, quarterly. Okay, that's how you measure success. Okay, so if a company is making 2% more income yearly, however, the customers and especially the employees of the company are more excited about their job, that's not something that is measurable or not something that you show to the shareholders, because that's not important. When you study Kabbalah, you know that if you can show that the employees, the members of this company, are more happy and more excited about their lives, more and more you will realize that that will guarantee more profits in the future. And also, a research is showing that also the ability of the company to deal with great challenges, like, for instance, hardships in the marketplace, which means recession, depression, crisis, economical crisis, that whoever has some brains realizes that the economical crisis that we experience during the last 15 years, they're just the beginning of the big crisis that humanity is facing: economical, spiritual, political, all because we look at one thing: the ability of people to feel excitement, loyalty, happiness about their families, about their communities, about the society they're members of, because this is declining year by year. The moment we see those results, we know that it's inevitable to see crisis also on the physical level. Why is it like this? The answer is very simple. The moment the roots are starting to dry off, we will see later on the drying off of the branches, the leaves, the flowers, and the quality of the fruits. So, Parashat Ekev, the word Ekev means following, which means it belongs to the system of cause and effect. And what does it say? It says, on one hand, it says you need to listen, internalize the rules that the Torah is teaching you. Why? Because, let's say verse 12. Again, Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12. Okay? If you listen to the laws, you observe them, and you do them. And again, listen carefully, this expression repeats itself through the whole book of Deuteronomy. Ushmartem v'asitem, lishmor ve'lasot. Every time that the rules are being mentioned, there are two verbs mentioned relating to it. One is to observe, lishmor, ushmartem, and you will observe. The other one is to do, to act upon it. Ve'asitem. Why do you need two verbs? Why isn't that enough to observe or to do? And the answer is very simple. In order for a person to be here and now, to be present in his everyday life, which is a necessity, it's a must, it's a precondition for any kind of true lasting success, you need observation, which means awareness, understanding of the bigger picture, which means connection to the realm that is beyond the senses, connection to the bigger picture, and we'll see what's the bigger picture. Okay? The picture that is, I'm here to feed, correct, elevate my soul. That is the verb to observe. It's all observation. It's all about awareness. The other word is, and to act upon it. Tva'asitem, to do. Which means it's not enough to have a very beautiful consciousness and awareness. You need to be physically be able to manifest it, because if you have an amazing understanding of the spiritual realm, but you have no correct actions, okay, don't expect any success. If you have the right actions, however your awareness is lacking, you do it just by rote, then you have a body without a soul, and just observation is a soul without a body. And what we are really having to learn, especially throughout the book of Deuteronomy, is the connection, the reminding of it. All the time that we have to remind ourselves, day by day, week by week, that every action that we do needs awareness, mindfulness, understanding, knowledge. That's under the word ushmartem, and you will observe. And you need at the same time to know what are the real actions in the physical universe, in the physical bodily perspective that we have to do. And it's important that both will be perfected as much as we can. Why? Because you see the result. If you do that, then verse 13, Ve'ahevcha, let's go back. We just learned about the first half of verse 12. What's the second half of verse 12? Ve'shamar Adonai Elohecha lecha et habrit ve'et hachesed. When you do that, you observe and you do, then God will observe the covenant and the grace that He swore to your ancestors. And then now we can understand verse 13. He will love you, He will bless you, He will multiply you. Ve'ahevcha, He will love you. Uverachecha, He will bless you. Ve'hirbecha, He will multiply you. Uverach pri bitnecha, He will bless the fruit of your loins. Friat matecha, the fruit of your land. Deganecha v'tirushcha v'itzarecha, your grains, your the fruit of your vineyards, your oil, and also the fruit of your animals. Okay? So what do you see over here? So we have to be really perfected. We have here a condition, Ekev. Ekev means there is a connection between cause and effect. Ekev. Which means when we have that awareness of the spiritual realm, which is the awareness of the roots, the soul level, and we also are aware of the right actions that we should do. We read yesterday in the Torah, Parashat Vayitchanan, and we read about Mount Sinai revelation. And it says over there very clearly, do not steal. Why does God have to tell us on Mount Sinai in such an amazing, overwhelming audiovisual show, shocking audiovisual show, beyond audiovisual, do not steal? If we reach that level, of course we know not to steal. No, it's very clear. Do not steal, do not kill. It's like the very, very distinct physical aspects of behavior. Why? Why on Mount Sinai? Did we know it before? Did we know before, like the ancient Babylonians, the ancient Egyptians, didn't they have a legal system with rules and judges? Of course they did. And when it says do not kill and do not steal, did it say in their legal system? Of course it did. Did that prevent their ruling class from stealing and killing the people under them? No, of course not. Because the do not steal and do not kill applied only to the simple people. The ruling class, they did whatever they wanted because the simple people were their, how should we say, property. They were property. Okay? And I don't know if you realize that, but we are very, very fast coming to a very same kind of rule, which means there are equal people and there are people that equal more. Okay? If you know what I'm saying. In the ancient times, the government was allowed to take everything because the people were not citizens, they were subjects, they were serfs. Okay? They were not able to kill and to steal because that was government property, another human being. The only ones that were allowed to steal and to kill was the government. Okay? They didn't call themselves government. They were the royalties, the nobilties, the people were sitting up in the top. When we're talking about the great democracy of Greece in Athens, there was democracy to everybody in Athens? Of course not, God forbid. Okay, the majority were slaves. The simple people were slaves. They were, on the top. They were people. There was democracy among them, maybe. Okay, but they lived on somebody else's labor. Okay, that's not democracy. That's not transparency. That's not what we read on the two tablets. What was different was that on the two tablets it meant for everyone. And as we read in the book of Deuteronomy, where it says clearly, if you want to have a king, he must write this book with his own hand. And then he must go around with the book wherever he goes. Why? So he understands literally that he is not above the law. That is the big difference of Mount Sinai revelation, which is the greatest revolution in the history of humanity. Nobody is above the law. Now, here we see that when people observe, which means when people are really associated, really focus on cultivating their observance of what we call the spiritual realm, knowing it, understanding it, developing it, exercising their skills of spiritual connection and abilities, and which are defined on one standing on one foot, as Hillel the elder said, love others as you love yourself. And what it says late in the Torah, love others as you love yourself, because that's the way to connect to the Creator. When you do that, you develop your spiritual muscles, your spiritual dimension, your spiritual part. You develop the roots. The stronger the roots, then we can ascend the following verse. Then you can experience God's love. You can experience God's blessing, which means the love and the blessing of the Creator in this realm are not secured. Why? Because we need to cultivate the root level of our consciousness, of our awareness, of our thinking and our behavior. As long as we develop the roots, then there will be enough supply of nurturing to the branches, which is the body. And here the connection between soul and body is emphasized through the whole parasha. And therefore, it is not a surprise that one of the most famous verses in the Torah is here in this parasha. When we go to chapter 8, verse 3, the second half of the verse, and it says, the first half speaks about that we had to wander in the desert and eat the manna, which is not a normal kind of food, and it's not the time to explain what it is, for the purpose to notify you, says the Torah, ki lo al halechem levado yichyeh adam. A human being cannot live on bread only. Okay? Which means bread, which is a symbol of any kind of physical sustenance or nurturing, which means could be also meat, fish, could be everything, could be vegetables, everything that nurtures the body. Nurturing the body is not enough. Ki al kol motza pi Hashem yichyeh adam. A human being will live over and from whatever comes from the mouth of God. And here, Rabbi Isaac Luria, the great Kabbalist of the 16th century, explains to us that two ways to understand it. One is very simple. If you feed only the physical body and the soul stays without any spiritual nourishment, the soul will be deprived, wilt, and finally die. You will see that in the wilting of the physical body, which means you can feed the body the best food with the best vitamins. That does not guarantee fulfillment. We all know that. How many times we felt hungry, even though we know physically we ate very well and very nutritious food? How many times we feel a lack of security, although we know that we are in a very secured place, surrounded by all what is needed to feel secure, and we're still not secure. We just achieve the greatest achievements of society, which it could be money and or could be fame or all the other stuff, and we still feeling hunger and lack. Is that common? Too common. Why is that? Because when you feed only the physical aspect of your life, you will stay depleted. And therefore you can find people that you look at them and you see you have everything a human being can think about. Okay, you're in shape. You have very like high level nutrition. You have enough money to have security for who knows how many centuries from now. Although you don't need to, so you can guarantee the security, the financial security of your children and even your grandchildren. Who knows how many generations? And you're still psychotic and neurotic, and you're still upset, and you still feel that something is missing. Why is that? As we said again, we cannot live over the bread alone. We need the spiritual nourishment. And therefore, that can be explained by Rabbi Isaac Luria into two parts. One part is, the day by day race for success. And again, if during the day my race in a conscious level and also in the physical movements will be focused on physical, materialistic goals only, of course, we know that those achievements will be short-lived. Why? After the high of achieving the best meal made by the best chefs or anything of that sort, or let's say making a business deal with a lot of money, that can give us a fulfillment, but this is a short-lived fulfillment. And therefore, we need to extend the fulfillment. So what do? We eat even more expensive food. We drink even more expensive wines or alcohols. We try even, a lot of us, to use some chemicals to alter our thinking and our consciousness. That will give us a high, but that high cannot sustain more than few minutes, maybe few hours. And then what? After the high comes the buy. This is the biggest disease of the materialistic society. How do we guarantee lasting fulfillment, authentic lasting fulfillment, which means to get ourselves into a shape that our ability to achieve fulfillment is getting better and better, and the fulfillment that we achieve is much, much more long-lived. And here is the secret. So Rabbi Azakluria divides it into two aspects. One is the daily aspect of day by day developing our ability to communicate to, to our real spiritual nourishment. What should I do, and how do I do it to guarantee daily spiritual fulfillment? That's one. The second, says the Ari, the moment it says Al kol motza pi Hashem, whatever comes out from the mouth of God. First of all, God does not have a mouth. Okay? He's not anthropomorphic. He doesn't have the shape of a human being. So we have to understand that this is a kind of a borrowing of the word for something else. So we are talking about the same way we can listen to a song, okay, and that will give us some joy, fulfillment, and an uplifting experience, okay, and all words of somebody. So when we speak about what comes out of the mouth of God, we're talking not about the physical sound, we're talking about that inner dimension that here I was getting from somebody's mouth nourishment for the soul, although I did not get any physical material in that kind of exchanging. Okay? So, another way is the word mutza, says Rabbi Azaklora, in Aramaic, same letters of soma, fasting. And here we're talking about the holiday of Yom Kippur. Now, if you follow the last few parashot, Yom Kippur is being mentioned in each one of them for the last 3 weeks at least. Why Yom Kippur is mentioned? Because we are already in the countdown towards Yom HaKippurim, which means the beginning of the next coming year. Because the Hebrew Rosh Hashanah, the new year, is just less than 6 weeks from now. Okay, so it's time to prepare. What's so special about Yom Kippurim? Yom Kippurim, we learned last week, was one of the most happiest days of the year. How could it be? Many Jews are sure, since they were born, since they remember themselves, then Yom Kippurim is a day of crying, you're very sad, you feel guilty for your sins, and you sit there making yourself suffer as much as possible, especially if you're fasting. So God will have some mercy for you and give you another year, which is a very, very idol worshiping concept. If you will be really, really humble and keep yourself low and inflict pain about yourself, then God will have mercy for you. That is not a Jewish concept. And especially when you study Yom Kippurim, which Yom Kippurim is a day that you have no time to eat because you pray the whole day. Some people don't even leave the synagogue during the whole holiday. And so what does it mean? Happy day. And the answer is, says Rabbi Isaac Luria, the Arizal, every day of the year we need, in order to nourish our soul, we need to make physical actions. Okay? We need to make a living. So we need to go and work. When we go to work, we make physical actions because we need to provide. So if these physical actions we instill,
Подожди.
we instill in them, in these physical actions, Spiritual consciousness, like, you can go to work, or you can go and have a vision that through your work you bring more light to people. That's the difference between materialism and spirituality. That the physical actions are only tools to move, generate, create something that of bigger value, like happiness, like love, like affection, like optimism, like excitement about life and about goodness. All of that could be done just by a carpenter, by a plumber, saving somebody's date, just the holidays just coming. Now they have an explosion in one of the pipes, and you come and you save the day. Wow, you bring so much happiness. So if you have that state of mind that you're not just fixing the plumbing, you're not just giving IT services, you're just enabling people's happiness by making their lives much easier. If that is your consciousness, you're basically day by day training yourself to activate and to nurture your soul, because that's another kind of fulfillment. That's a fulfillment that cannot be measured by money, by households, or by any kind of a physical sense. But that is the lasting sense of achievement, because that can never be taken away. As it says, charity will last forever. Okay, so, but on Yom Kippur, says the Arizal, you do not need physical actions that you instill inside them spiritual consciousness in order to connect to the endless light of the Creator. On Yom Kippur, it's the only day that you can feed directly for the upper light. But how? By fasting, which means when you shut down the body desires and needs, and you open on that special holy day the antennas of connecting to nourishment. This is a one day that is so different, says Rabbi Zakluria. You can nourish, fulfill your soul, not just for that day, for the whole coming year. So that day is kind of a world to come, in a sample of how the world to come will feel like. So if you come to Yom Kippurim according to the spiritual teachers, and you're busy the whole day showing God how full of regret and guilt you are, and how miserable you are, and you just feel so tortured during the whole day, it's not Yom Kippur, it's Passover. Why? Because all the greatest bliss that is flowing through that day passes over you, and you get nothing. Why is it a happy day? Because if you know there's a day that you can nourish your soul and fill it up with spiritual lasting fulfillment, and it will nourish you for the whole year, and what you have to do is simply be there, pray, meditate, and simply connect. You don't need to do anything else. Aren't you going to be happy? So according to the spiritual teachers, this is the happiest day of the year. And therefore, we just read, when we spoke about the 15th of Av, that at the end of Tractate Tanit, in the Mishnah, it says that the two happiest days of the Hebrew calendar were the 15th of Av, the holiday of love, and Yom HaKippurim. Why? Because it is a day that you're being forgiven. Now, if you're being forgiven, sitting there in front of God on Yom Kippur with a sour face, this is kind of not appropriate. Like you're standing in front of the King of the universe, he forgives you, and you sit there with a sour face. This is idol worshiping. Why idol worshiping? Because the way people were taught to worship idols was the more you suffer, the more you inflict suffering upon yourself. You sacrifice your child, God forbid. You give all your fortune to the gods. Okay? So the word was sacrificing. So you sacrifice your happiness, everything. Then, after you gave them everything you have, the gods won't be angry anymore about you. You will appease them by your sacrifice. This is a very powerful concept of idol worshiping, which means the moment you believe in a God that is always angry, so you always have to sacrifice him to appease him, that's idol worshiping. This is all the pagan world lived like this. You as a human, because you are low life, because you are basically just a subject and you belong to the government, to the king, you have no rights for happiness. And therefore, you always have to appease the gods, and it happens to be that your king is one of them. So he declared, okay? That's a genius political invention. And you know what? It lasted for thousands of years. Only during the last few centuries. And by the way, the big religions who declare themselves monotheistic used the same concept to control the believers. So it's not a surprise that as the world is developing and we see more and more freedom, and people say to themselves, how can I believe in a God that is always angry about me and always wants me to sacrifice? Deep inside, you know that this is a lie. So people become more and more anti-religious. And then that's why science is so anti-religious. It's not pure science, it is a tool of modern society to rebel against religion, because one of the ways religion controlled the low lives, which means most of humanity, was, you're not supposed to have any understanding what's going on. Do not ask questions, because if you ask questions, you ask the question, how come my life is just getting more miserable? While those people who preach me to live a very humble life and give them everything, they live exactly not the way they preach, right? Because religion became the most profitable business in the world during like the last 1500 years, especially under monotheism, okay? Fake monotheism. Now, so we want to understand something that is very different. We want to understand what is the secret of happiness. And we understand that the secret of happiness is that, on one hand, the love of God, the grace of God is endless and no one can stop it from flowing. However, we can stop it from flowing into our lives when we do not understand the rules. And the rules say that if you do not work on your spiritual awareness, you cannot connect to that realm of spiritual fulfillment. Very simple. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. That's how it works. If your mind is not, today we know very simple, if you want to receive a call, if somebody is calling you, okay, on your cellular phone, you need to have a cellular phone in order to get that phone call. Correct? Very simple. If you don't have the cellular phone, you cannot receive the call. By the way, did you ever see the call coming before your cellular phone shows it? No. Do you have any problem with that, that you never saw radio waves and you don't really know how it works? No, we don't have a problem. Do you have a problem that you use a phone and you don't really know how does that function? How come your cellular phone, your smartphone of today, 2022, is more capable of the whole state's government computer during the 50s or the 60s? Your phone is much stronger than that. Okay, how, and you have no idea how it works. Still, you use it. Here, that's what we're saying. We are here for that purpose, to receive the light of the Creator, because that message is coming all the time. We live in a dimension that is physical, so we need to elevate, to ascend above our physical consciousness in order to earn the spiritual light of God. And that is why we live in a physical materialistic society. So it would be hard, so we can earn. Who does that depend on? Our behavior. Which means, it doesn't say anything about God's attitude towards us. It says that when we observe and do, when we behave in a certain way, we create the flow of God's love, God's fulfillment, and everything that is good. So who does that depend on? On us and us alone. Okay, and you can see that again, in another verse that became a slogan, and that you can find it in chapter 8, verse 10. ואכלת ושבעת וברכת את אדוני אלוהיך. You should eat, you should satiate, and you should bless the Lord your God. Why? Why do you need all of that? Is that a commandment or is that a promise? I don't know exactly. It's just simply Ekev, cause and effect. When you eat and you satiate, that will happen, says the Zohar, only when you expand your consciousness to understand that when you eat, we eat for one purpose. We eat because when we eat, we connect to two aspects. In the food that we eat, we have physical nutrients, vitamins, whatever other components, and we have spiritual nutrients that when we have an expanded consciousness and we are using this mindfulness, we also extract the spiritual dimension from the food that we eat. Therefore, when we eat in such a way, we will be satiated much earlier. Not like many times we find ourselves eating and eating and eating. Physically we're exploding, but internally we're still hungry. How could that happen? When we devour only the physical aspect without the spiritual dimension. How do you do that? That's what this parasha is about. We need to commit to observance, which means development of our spiritual consciousness, mindfulness, meditative abilities, that everything around us, including our friends, our family members, whatever, they have a hidden dimension, they have a soul, and that what makes the spirit, the tree of life, is the way that you look at stuff and you see the roots and the branches as one, the soul and the physical body. The fact that you do not steal is not because you're afraid of the police. The fact that you don't steal is because it says so on the two tablets. And why does it say so? Because you cannot steal spiritual spirit. You can steal a physical concept which is only fake. It's only a container for spiritual awareness, for a spiritual dimension. You cannot steal light. You cannot steal spiritual awakeness. You cannot steal spiritual dimension. You can steal only the shell, the outer shell, and therefore, you ask thieves. I met few thieves that admitted they are thieves. There's no fulfillment. And if there is a fulfillment, it's very, very, very short-lived. Very. And then comes the void and the lack again. And that's why it says you should observe and you should do, means when we understand that the way this universe is wired is that it's called the tree of life, which means every physical being, physical aspect of this universe has a spiritual dimension that we need to be aware of. So what does it mean to be a spiritual person? Is developing that aspect, because when you understand that, you'll behave in much more honesty and integrity. Not because you're afraid of being caught. It's just because you're committed to live in such a way, because that's the way the universe is wired. That's the way the universe is set. And you cannot go against these laws without suffering the consequences. And it's not because there's a punishing God. No, God is not punishing. That's why the sages of the Mishnah and the Talmud, they say, evil does not come from above. It's like the same way I say many, many times, when somebody pushes his finger, you cannot, but let's say you put a sharp object that is also made of metal into the socket, and you get electrocuted. Do you think the electricity in the wires has something against you? Do you think that the electric company has something against you? No, they don't. So why were you got electrocuted? Because you did not go by the rules that the system is wired. That you're not supposed to touch this system of high voltage. It's not meant for human consumption. Okay? Same thing. When you understand that the physical body is dependent on the spiritual wiring of the universe, that's what the Torah is talking about. These are the cause and effect of punishment and reward. It's not there's a punishing God or rewarding God. God's giving is endless because God is endless. It's endless in time and in space. However, we need to ascend to the frequency of God's light in order to fill it in, bring it in, and to connect online to that network. Okay? So this is what Parashat Ekev is about. So we see it in other expressions. For instance, let's go to chapter 9, verse 18. וזכרת את אדוני אלוהיך, you should remember the Lord your God. כי הוא הנותן לך כוח לעשות חיל. He is the one who gives you the power to win and to fight and to succeed. Okay? Which means energy is that what we want. Everybody wants to be in the zone. Everybody wants to feel lucky, creative, thinking out of the box. How do you do that? You simply first of all, be aware that these energies have nothing to do with calories and vitamins. Oh yes, you have to eat properly. Everybody who's eating properly is a happy human being? No. I met so many of them. They're crazy about eating the right stuff. Vitamins, minerals, everything. And they're totally depressed and hateful. Why? Because this is just a beginning. Being nurtured properly in the physical level, this is just a beginning. Then you need to be nurtured spiritually. You need to activate that part of your consciousness that is in the frontal lobe and other places of the brain, but especially in the frontal lobe. You have to develop them to be able to visualize, to vision, to have an awareness that is awareness of ascension, the ability to realize that everything has two dimensions, the physical and the spiritual, the body, the body consciousness and the soul consciousness. When you do that, then you can tap into the infinite powers of the Creator. Who does that depend on? Do I need to make myself suffer, sacrifice in order to receive that? No, that's not how it's wired. You see that in cultures that people believe in guilt and sacrifice, there's no creativity, not enough. Only in cultures that people believe in themselves, that they believe that they deserve to be successful. How many countries needed to get away from religion in order to reveal those ideas that are based in the biblical monotheism? Okay? The problem is, it's not enough just to believe in yourself and your right for happiness. You need also to be aware of that dimension, that where that energy is coming from. And this is a daily, repetitive habit of tradition. That's why you need to study daily. Don't think that you can go one day without studying Torah or spiritual text or listening to spiritual teaching. So why? Because you need to fulfill that day with that spiritual content. It's not enough that you ate well and you slept well and you did all of those stuff and you made a living. Let's see chapter 10 verse 12. ואתה ישראל, מה אדוני אלוהיך שואל מעמך? And now Israel, what is that the Lord your God wants from you? כי אם ליראה את אדוני אלוהיך ללכת בכל דרכיו ולאהבה אותו ולעבוד את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך. Translation: just what God is asking you is to have his awe. Awe? How do you write awe? Did you realize that awe and awareness is the same word? Mindfulness and awe. Awe is not fear. Awe is awareness. Lishmor is awe. When you are aware to the forces of the electricity in the walls of your house, you would not do stupid moves in sticking stuff in the socket or making holes in the wall without thinking about where the wires are going through. Correct? That's awareness. Awareness, you do not see the electricity running in the wires. You do not see the wires in your walls, but you are very, very aware that misconduct about that stuff can be really, really painful and many times deadly, unfortunately. So what God is saying, if you have that awareness, then, and you create that love, and you do the job of applying yourself always to become a magical spiritual creature, then that's what God needs us. Nothing else. He doesn't need us to humiliate ourselves. He doesn't need us to suffer. Never, ever. That's fake or fake religion. He needs us to be happy because, the nature of what is good is to share good and to ask for the good. And therefore, if God is endless goodness, that's a basics of monotheism, then he wouldn't like us to be miserable and suffer. That's against his will, if you understand monotheism. So you can find that theme all along the rest of this parasha. So now, after understanding that, we can understand what the Zohar is saying. That the whole thing about blessing God over the food It's not because some religious people think, you eat the food, you should thank God for the food. That God does not need our thanking. The purpose of the blessings is to extend our awareness and connection to the godly aspect, dimension beyond that food. That every fruit, every dish of food has a spiritual dimension that we feed our soul by eating it with that right consciousness. That's why we add the blessings before and after the food. Not because we're thanking God, that He needs a thank. Thankfulness is always great, okay? But that's not the main purpose of the blessings. The main purpose of the blessing is to awaken the spiritual dimension in the food or in anything that we enjoy. Otherwise, says the Zohar, stealing. Why is it stealing? Because when you steal an object or a home or anything you steal from others, you can receive the physical dimension, but not God's bliss within it. It will never really satiate you. And our goal is not the means, our goal is the spiritual dimension beyond, that is the only one that can satiate us eternally. Thank you so much and enjoy this week.